one of the social media platforms, and we'll be able to pick that up. So, hello, bonjour, good morning, good afternoon. I do think we've got people connecting from all over, which again is so super inspiring. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Stephanie Jordan. I'm the co-founder of Avalon, founder of Drinking Out Loud Consultancy, and more importantly, your host for today. And I am so delighted to be hosting you for our third installment of our Positively Charged series. And this one is a really, really exciting one at that. We are beyond delighted that we have teamed up with Wonderworks, the most fantastic, creative and strategic partners in the drinks industry, if Tim and I can say so, to bring you this edition of Sustainable by Design. Now, before I get into the details of today's session, or I introduce this incredible lineup of speakers that we have for you, there's one thing that's really, really important, and that is to thank you all for taking the time to connect. When Tim and I were in our Zoom board meeting room during lockdown and trying to work out ways that we could continue to drive our vision and mission for a more positive and a more environmentally positive spirits world, we put our heads together and came up with these series. Now, Positively Charged really has the aim and the single mission to light up the sustainability conversation in the drinks industry. And to do that, for us to be the change together for a more positive future is really vital, and it's what gets us out of bed every single day. So thank you for caring, because even the smallest of changes will be the ones to make the biggest difference. There's someone else or two other people we'd love to thank. Many of you know my business partner, Tim Edrington Judge, also co-founder of Avalon, and just as importantly, the founder of Healthy Hospo. Tim and I have been so very blessed going on this entrepreneurial journey when creating our Planet Positive startup, Avalon. And along the way, we met two very strong, smart and passionate women, Sarah Wildman King and Miranda Hart, the founders of Wonderworks. And through twisted stories of fate, it turns out that they decided to donate their Christmas gift money that they should be giving to their clients to Healthy Hospo, because they also believe in a happier, healthier hospitality industry. And by that means, we met, and these ladies and their agencies are responsible for putting together Avalon's award-winning design, and we value them tremendously. Today, they sit on our advisory board, and so we publicly really just wanted to take the time to thank them and thank them for working so closely with us on this mission that we have for a brighter drinks industry. Right, so back to the matter at hand. Today's subject is sustainable by design, which is a term used to describe environmentally conscientious design, or simply put, eco-design. Sustainability by design is the philosophy of designing physical objects and services to comply with the principles of ecological sustainability, with the intention to eliminate negative environmental impacts, with the added value of connecting people with their natural environment. Now, I'd just like to quote the authors of an incredible book called The Upcycle. They say that human beings do not have a pollution problem. They actually have a design problem. And if humans were to devise products, tools, furniture, homes, factories, and cities more intelligently from the start, they wouldn't even need to think in terms of waste, contamination, or scarcity. Good design would allow for abundance, endless reuse, and pleasure. Now, that's a pretty powerful statement, which basically leads us to today's question and the topic of conversation. If sustainable design is in fact one of the many solutions available to us to reverse climate change and to be able to live in harmony with nature, Tim, just poll went live, and to live in harmony with nature, how does this actually impact the landscape of the drinks industry? And what are we actually doing about it? And as the general public becomes increasingly aware of environmental impact on their consumption habits, well, drinks producers are eager to be seen to be doing their bit. But the question remains, will banning plastic straws, will lighter bottles and more recycled materials be enough to reverse the damage that we have already done as an industry? So without further ado, wonderful Tim, who's also the Zoom master of today, is going to introduce you to this fantastically international panel. And I am sure, and I know that they will be able to shed some light on this very question. Tim?
Hello. Sorry, technical issues. My new laptop really can't deal with Zoom very well. Super international panel today. Very excited. I think we're all from different countries, which is quite exciting. If Stephanie will tell you she's from Colombia.
I have a Colombian passport. Counts, yeah. Baby.
There you go. Then every single one of us is from a different country, which is fantastic, right? Bringing together the world to champion sustainability. So we have an amazing lineup of speakers today, starting with Sandrine Ricard, head of sustainability for Chivas Brothers. So championing one of the biggest whiskey brands, one of the biggest spirits brands in the world, and bringing them along on this sustainability journey with a real passion for terroir, for packaging, and really positioning Chivas Regal as a sustainable brand in the 21st century. So we're very excited to have Sandrine with us today.
Thank you.
Down in the bottom corner, who's either sitting next to the world's biggest bottle of whiskey, or he's got a fancy background, is a good friend, Zdenek Kastanek from Czech. What to say about this man? He in the drinks industry, he has done it all, from being an award-winning bartender.
Proof.
From being an award-winning bartender and bar manager at the legendary private members club Quo Vadis, through to 28 Hong Kong Street, one of the most award-winning bars in Asia, to being one of the co-founders and GM at Proof & Company in Asia, who are really changing the game as a distributor around there and challenging a lot of the norms that have just kind of been accepted for a long time. But today he's talking to us about EcoSPIRITS, which is their amazing new product that's really challenging how we distribute spirits around the world. But I won't spoil the surprise because it's a really, really cool thing they're doing. Top left, we've got Megs Miller, world famous bartender, drinks consultant, tequila expert, and someone really, really passionate about sustainability from the bar and operator's point of view. So Megs is going to talk to us about kind of the way that bars have to deal with packaging waste, and some of the things that she's been doing and has been championing to help reduce that. And then in the bottom right is Rita, all the way from, looks like a swimming pool in Portugal. So Rita is design director at Wonderworks Communications, and Stephanie and I have a lot to thank her about, because she is the genius behind the award-winning Avalon packaging and design. So Rita is going to talk to us today about the importance of design, the design process within sustainability. So it's an incredible panel, and we're going to talk through everything from the design process through to the production, through to the distribution, and then finally dealing with the waste of the packaging from the bar level. So
amazing.
An entire journey of a product from design to end point.
And on this occasion, Tim and I are going to say hush, because actually this is far from our expertise. And so we have called in some of the best people to tell you more about this. Just in terms of ways of workings of the webinar, you do actually have a live poll that's just popped up, hopefully on your screens. These will be live for about a minute or two, and then we'll share results. So for now, I can only see that 7 people have voted for Tim's first question, which was, have you ever considered design as an important part of sustainability? And we will publish the results as soon as you've all voted. We've got 70%. And it's a really, really interesting way to keep the conversation going amongst ourselves. you know, we appreciate that you can't talk to us, but you can write to us, and we will then open up a Q&A panel at the end of all the speakers' sessions. So please, if you want to, you know, send those in ahead, I will be taking your questions. Okay, so answer to poll number 1 is thankfully yes. 88% of you actually have considered design to be an important part of sustainability. And for those that said no or weren't sure, hopefully today we'll change that. So without further ado, Sandrine, I think this is over to you.
Thank you very much. Now let me see if I can share my screen here.
Yep, perfect.
Do you see it? Yes. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to speak about packaging today. I'm glad to share what we're doing at Chivas Brothers and Pernod Ricard. I've worked both at the parent company and now Chivas Brothers implementing what the sustainability agenda that we've created at HQ level. And I can appreciate the balance between global goals and implementing locally. So to get started, I just want to give you a little bit of context of how we got there. A little over a year ago, we created a new sustainability roadmap called Good Times from a Good Place. Because we are all about conviviality. It's a French word that doesn't quite translate in English, but it's where we want to share good moments with the world. And believe me, today we need that more than ever. And it's a world where we need to be responsible and produce and consume without excess. We consider ourselves as part of the hospitality industry, therefore are passionate hosts, but also respectful guests on our planet. Now, to get in the gritty of it, you mentioned earlier, we have 4 pillars, which are equally important to us, and we'll be talking about one in particular later on. The first one is nurturing terroir, because all of our products come from a specific region, and in our case, Scotch whiskey, we are very present in the Speyside region, and we would like to nurture that landscape. Valuing people, it's all about the people we work with, not just our employees, but partners and suppliers. And you might have seen recently that Pernod Ricard launched the Bar World of Tomorrow. So it's imagining the bar world of tomorrow. So inviting people, particularly bartenders and bar owners, who want to get on that sustainable journey and understand it better, from sourcing fresh ingredients to all the way to responsible drinking. So that was launched in association with the UN and also the Sustainable Restaurant Association and Trash Tiki. So what we call circular making is circular economy, is obviously ensuring that we have the least waste at in every process. So packaging has a lot to play in that area. And as an example of that, we signed up to the Ellen MacArthur Foundations. And the 4th pillar is all about, particular to our industry, is all about responsible drinking. And here we have the example of Best Bar None, which we work on with third parties, which is all an accreditation scheme for responsible premises. Now, we know that we live in a world of finite resources and that they are under huge pressure. And our packaging footprint accounts for a third of our carbon footprint. And in terms of the breakdown of our packaging, 90% approximately is glass. So again, we want to minimize waste at every step of the way by imagining, producing, and distributing products and experiences in ways that optimize and help preserve those natural resources. So our first focus is to implement eco-design. So as the signatory of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, we are committed to circular packaging and its 5 principles, which you see here across the packaging life cycle, which means we need to look at our carbon footprint, choose the right materials, optimize the quantity of the materials that we use, and think the whole process all the way to the consumer. So to give you examples, I'll give you illustrations for each of these. So first, in terms of reducing, where it's about looking at reducing size and weight and getting rid of any unnecessary packaging. So here I have examples of Ballantine's, which has reduced its weight by 13%. Or Passport, which used to have more rectangular angles, which means it needs more glass in those areas. So without compromising the identity of Passport, we were able to limit the glass in those areas. The example of Chivas is about when we sell on premise to get rid of the gift box, which is not needed or required in those areas. And other areas we looked into reducing is ensuring in the shipment cases we use less materials without compromise, without there being any more breakage. Or other brands looking at getting rid of foil on their labels. It's also looking at the closures, so moving from an F&R closure, in this case, to an aluminum top. So these are a few examples of what's been done in terms of reducing. When we look at reusing, it's all about either being refillable or reusing the packaging for another purpose. And here we have the example of Blender's Pride in India, where the bottles, the empty bottles are collected by Untrade and sent back, washed by a third party and refilled by us. So that's a good example of reuse in this instance. In terms of recycling, so we need to choose recyclable materials and if at least consider compostable or bio-based materials. So I could have shown any of our brands here because we have over 95% of our bottles that are recyclable. Here you have the example of the Glenlivet. Also to mention that the cartons that are used are also FSC certified. And that brings me to the 4th one, which is respect. Now, in terms of respect, it's ensuring that all the materials are responsibly sourced or of sustainable origins. And here we have the Absolute bottle, which is using more than 40% recycled content, which is quite a huge feat when you consider that it's a Flint bottle. And the other example in this case is a Montilla rum, where the closures are made of sugarcane ethanol. Now coming into the last one, rethink, which is really thinking out of the box. It's a very challenging the need for any element in the packaging and looking at circular solutions. So it's really adopting a circular mindset. And at Chivas, we drive innovations in that sense that we experimented, as you will see, but it's really part of a new product development process. At the Glenlivet, we wanted to break tradition. So last October at London Cocktail Week, we launched the Glenlivet Capsules, which are, so they're seaweed capsules, which have in them ready-made cocktails. So you put one of those in the mouth and you have the sensation of drinking a cocktail. And that was quite pioneering and it sparked quite the conversation, I must say, in a sense that don't think anyone thought that a single malt would ever do something like this in an industry that is very perceived as being traditional Scotch whiskey. So seaweeds are biodegradable within 4 to 6 weeks. They're also a natural resource that you find in the oceans, and that also help deacidify the ocean. So very natural product. Now another example of pioneering as well, and here we're also experimenting, is Absolute, that is looking to work with paper bottles. So you can imagine the challenge there in ensuring that the spirit withstands within that textured bottle. So it would be made of wood fiber. So these are, in a nutshell, quite a few examples of things that we're doing both at Pernod Ricard and at Chivas Brothers level. And just to finish off, to say that we're in this journey, but we've been there for a while. But there's so much more to do. There are quite a few challenges that we aim to surpass. But I think collaboration is definitely a key, and more of a key to success. And I'd like to finish off by saying it's going to be quite interesting to see how the consumers will change or not their behavior post-COVID. So that's all for me. Thank you.
Amazing. I couldn't agree more with you on the collaboration point of view, because ultimately, if we are to lead the way forward, we need to do that together as a collective industry. And there's really no point for any one of us to be doing it in our own corner, because ultimately we won't be able to impact positively and at scale. So thank you very much for sharing with us. I know something that you're not able to stay until the end for the Q&A, so I will allow myself a question that I think maybe others may have. You know, when putting together a brand like Avalon, it's much easier for Tim and I to be sustainable by design, because we were able to start from scratch last year, where obviously all these things are now really front and center. I appreciate that it's much harder for established brands to be able to sort of go backwards in the process. Could you share anything around that experience of actually having to go backwards versus being able to create something completely brand new?
So yes, we've made it out of our processes. Anytime that we now need to restage or to create new products, to ensure that we have this at the heart. Now the difficulty is also when people look at the brand, your brand identity. How do you change without compromising that brand identity? How can you be recognized in the same way? So it's not good. It's not something that can be done one day to the next, but it's something that we're definitely moving into, and that we're progressing into.
Fantastic, brilliant. If anyone does have a question for Sandrine, if you could send them over on the live Q&A button within the next 10 minutes, we'll be able to ask her before she has to jump offline. But for now, thank you so much. We do believe in convivialité, so fantastic. And I think we're going to move now on to Z in Miami. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, afternoon to you guys. Thank you for having me. I just want to touch very quickly before I put on a couple of slides of my own, that I can agree more with what you just said, that it's easier for a younger brand or small brand or new brand to start with sustainable by design than the big brands. And so what Sandrine presented, it was pretty brilliant and pretty great. I mean, especially stuff like the little cocktail pouches or paper bottles, etc. It's if such a well-known and a big company like Pernod Ricard or Chivas Brothers bring these conversations forward, you guys really have the power to steer a conversation up at top people where they make legislations and change legislations and etc. Because that's definitely something what everyone else is running into. As to have to go over it as a hurdle. We all know that the whole world, as you said at the beginning, is based on not making an intelligent design. It's more about making a profit still. And so, you know, having a people like Sandrine pushing a bigger brands and then bigger people who have obviously a bigger power to move stuff forward. It's brilliant and it's great. So thank you very much for being passionate about it from that end. It's pretty cool to see. On our small world end, we are trying to do something as well. And I'm hoping that I can introduce you to it a little bit further in the next 10 minutes. But before I get there, let me share a screen if it's gonna work for me.
It absolutely is. The tech gods are with us today. I can feel the energy.
Can we see that?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Well, it's our little project to add into this whole movement, something what we are passionate about ourselves as a company and as individuals. It's called EcoSPIRITS. We started this journey somewhere around 3.5, 4 years ago. And us as an importer and supplier distributor in Asia Pacific, a company called Proof & Company, which is one of our major projects we been working on for last 8-9 years outside of our little bar called 28 Hong Kong Street. We've realized very soon that the amount of waste we bringing into the Asia from the rest of the world is significant. We obviously all love to sit in the middle of Hong Kong or Singapore or Shanghai or anywhere and be able to drink delicious mezcal or tequila with Max Miller would write about and say we all need to drink it. And so we all want to make sure that that we all want to, you know, enjoy those moments. But that comes with a tax, right? Because that bottle needs to travel all around the world in glass, in cardboard, etc., and it's you know, probably living for somewhere around 30 to 40 minutes on busy Friday night in a bar because it only holds 700 ml of liquid. And if you really mix it into a cocktail, then you have somewhere around 15 portions in each bottle, and that's for busy bar, not really that much. And the cardboard and carbon dioxide, which is created by the travel, etc., is something what we all need to take into consideration. When we started doing a little bit of a research on our side, we realized that it depends on what you read and which sources you use, but somewhere around 40 billion spirit bottles will be used just in 2020. And that is not beer bottles, wine bottles, it's a spirit bottles alone. We have been fortunate, not me personally, but our team, to travel and work on projects in places like Maldives, for example. I'm still due to go. Maybe one day they'll let me. But those places are amazing to open your eyes to what waste means to tourism and hospitality. I don't know if you guys ever heard about Tilafushi Island, or you can Google it as the garbage island. But Maldives government and then people of Maldives try to do their absolute best to keep up with what it's created through what actually makes up most of the economy. So no one can blame them, and they're really trying their absolute best. But it's really mind-boggling to see the impact when you see it in such a paradise-looking place, and you can see how large amounts of waste are created. And so we started asking question, hey, can we maybe look at changing how spirits are distributed? We started looking into beer industry. I am Czech personally. When I go back home, my dad would have a somewhat milk crate, but it's beer crate. And when he buys his beers, he would wash them with water, put them back into the crate, and on Friday he would take them to a shop and swap them for a full crate of beers. And those bottles would go back to the brewery, be fully re-washed, relabeled, resealed, and then sent back into supermarkets or grocery stores. You know, you look at a milkman, which, you know, you can read articles now in the UK that milkman is coming back in a certain areas, which is pretty cool. There are still seltzer companies in Brooklyn, in New York, people delivering sparkling water to your doors, and then at the night you put them outside of your door and they pick them up and then re-deliver, etc. So we started looking at what we call closed loop. Can we somehow find a way how to do a closed loop system within our own distribution, and obviously then hopefully, if we're successful, take it further to the overall distribution of spirits around the world. And so that's how EcoSPIRITS were born. What you're looking at now is what we call EcoTote. It's its third iteration of it. We constantly updating the design based on the feedback from people who we work with. And so, as I say, it's a third iteration. We're already working on the fourth one. But what you are looking at is a basically glass cylinder with a casking around it to protect it. To the point which Sandrine was talking about, paper bottles. It's super cool, and I do really believe that something like Tetra Pak, which came about several decades back, it was a ground, it was changing the world, the way how stuff liquid is packaged. I do believe that paper might be another way or another option to work with. When we did our research with our partners at that time and current ones, glass was definitely something what people looked at as something what is still very much taken as what people would trust the most when it comes to keeping an alcohol in it. And so it's EcoTote is still a glass. It's 4.5 liters. The whole idea is that these little kegs, if you will, if you would compare it to the beer industry, only live within the vicinity of each city where EcoSPIRITS are available, and keep delivering the liquid, the spirits back and forth. Now, EcoSPIRITS is not a brand of alcohol. It has nothing to do with a brand of gin or tequila or rum, etc. It's a platform. And to the point of Stephanie, you were saying that it's something if we all work together, we can really make a real change. We see EcoSPIRITS to be the platform which can be used to deliver all sorts of spirits and liqueurs and etc. We are still obviously in the development. We've launched 2 years ago very quietly in Singapore because we wanted to troubleshoot as it's pioneering technology. We wanted to make sure that when we do actually go to a vast larger amount of clients, that we actually have the major little flaws and then mistakes taken out of from the system. But now, after 2 years and then officially launching this later last year, we are now operational in Sydney, Melbourne, Auckland, Singapore, Shanghai, etc. And so you can see these little guys, we call EcoTotes, running around each of the town. The comparison, again, to the beer, if you look at it from the perspective of a big international brands, the big problem with beer industry, no big problem, but the problem what beer industry has is that once you empty that keg and it's picked up by the beer distributor, this keg then needs to go back on a boat and shipped to the original place where they were filled with the delicious brew we like Guinness or etc. And that therefore, although they are amazing when it comes to waste of packaging, it's very small because the metal part is just shipped back and forth, and the glass we drink the beer from is washed in a dishwasher and then reused over and over. They have a bigger problem with carbon dioxide and carbon emissions because they're shipping empty large vessels back and forth. That is something what is addressed with EcoSPIRITS, is because we don't ship this EcoTotes back and forth to from, for example, our first bottling plant was in Singapore, and if you would use this in Sydney, we don't ship the kegs or EcoTotes from Sydney to Singapore. We simply opening a small filling units, we call them an eco plant, in each of the city where EcoSPIRITS are available, and therefore these guys, the EcoTotes, can live within that city and just ongoingly going back to the venue, being used, then go back to the filling station within Sydney or Melbourne, for example, and there be fully sanitized, refilled, resealed, and then sent back into a bar. Similarly, what a local brewery would do. So if we use a local brewery, that would be a similar thing if they recycle their bottles, is that they don't need to put it on a big boat and ship it across the world, because it's all locally done. And here's a couple of pictures of how the process looks like, or what the brands are. You can see there is an actual metal plate on each EcoTote holding what that EcoTote holds as a brand. It has an actual code on the side of it, which correlates with a code which is on a car seal on top of the tote, which you need to cut through to open it. So it's really safe. When it comes to that nothing goes in or out without us knowing. You can then basically track those codes back to know when it was filled, what was filled in there, who filled these totes, etc. So again, and pretty safe from that perspective. On the new iteration of an EcoTote, we're working on a QR code, so you'll be able to scan that, and it will technically take you to an online platform where all of these informations are stored as well. So we constantly trying to work on making sure that it's safer and better and better and better. Again, based on a feedback we have from our bartenders and people who are actually using these EcoTotes on day-to-day basis. Another little thing was that we are adding a scale on the side, which will help with stock take for the bartenders and make that side of it easier. We not only looked at in a way of how to cut waste and how to cut carbon footprint, which is the two major things when it comes to EcoSPIRITS and an EcoSPIRITS technology. We as well looked at it, well, if we are going this far, is there any chance that we can go even further? And we've partnered up with this amazing company called Green Steps. And basically there is a part of the profit per EcoTote sold to a bar goes back to buy an actual tree which is planted by a Green Steps. Now there's plenty of different companies doing so, obviously, but Green Steps is pretty cool because they geotag the actual trees, and so you can then for 2 years look at back where the trees are, how they're doing. They are trying to get as many informations about what that tree is going to be for, when it's cut, if it's cut, etc., etc. And so we are getting information from them how much of that particular species of tree offsets or holds and carbon dioxide, so offset carbon dioxide. Therefore, and that information goes to the bars because they are the ones who are actually buying the product, who are using the EcoSPIRIT, so they can then celebrate with their regulars. Because of our big party on Friday, we all planted 15 trees, etc., etc. And so it's the whole idea of bringing everyone together and then kind of pulling on the same rope and celebrating that there is a way how we all can have great products all around the world and have a good fun time in the evening, but at the same time doing it in a way that it somewhat helps the planet. The last piece I want to leave you with is a case study we did in the early days. We were fortunate enough that such a place like Raffles Hotel in Singapore, which is an iconic place for the Singapore Sling, and an iconic hotel. It's technically the Savoy of Asia. It's been open for 130 plus years now. And they, as you can imagine, being a touristy attraction because of the Singapore Sling, they welcome around 1,000 people in the long bar every day on average and make 1,000 Singapore Slings daily. If you think about what that means, when it comes to waste of all of the cardboard and glass bottles, etc., it's pretty immense numbers. And so what we did with them, and they were amazing to say, hey, we would love to be your guinea pig. We would love to partner with you guys. We love the initiative, etc., which was, we couldn't hope for better to launch something like, or to have something like that as a case study. We, within the first 12 months working on with Raffles, we basically say we're going to deliver every single ingredient for Singapore Sling in EcoTotes to see how much glass, how many bottles we can save. And for those who knows what Singapore Sling is, there is a loads of goes in there. It's gin, there's cherry brandy, there is curacao, there is bitters, and etc. etc. If you would put it into your calculator and then divide all of the 1,000 portions into all of the ingredients, it would come to that in the 1 year we have saved 40,000 glass bottles because of going through an EcoSPIRITS. 40,000 glass bottles is 4 containers, shipping containers full of glass, which would otherwise had to be recycled or would have to be thrown into landfill. And so that is EcoSPIRITS. I have only 10 minutes. I could sit here and talk to you about it for a little bit longer. I'm happy to take any notes, any questions. We are not perfect. It's a pioneering thing. We all need all of you guys to kind of ask as many questions as you can to get it to the perfect station. But thank you very much for inviting me. I can't wait to hear. I can't wait to hear from the rest of the ladies what they have to say, because I'm here to learn. And that is EcoSPIRITS.
That is absolutely hugely inspirational, Z. I think first of all, those EcoTotes are things of beauty. They're absolutely stunning. I think second of all, thank you so much. You guys are developing a solution, which hopefully one day, all brands could use. And even the fact that this has come out, of you guys, your passion, but Asia especially, I think is a whole entirely different subject we could talk about, countries
it's a fully
that struggle.
It's a fully Asian story. Proof & Company was founded in Singapore. Most of the team who works with us anywhere from Asia or local Singaporeans. We're fortunate enough that they allowed us to share their beautiful little island and gave us their resources. But yeah, as you say, it's a full Asian story.
And Asia struggles for space, a lot more than the US, for example. And so it kind of makes sense that these innovative waste saving, but also space solutions would come from there. But it's, it is incredible. And I know there will be a lot of questions. And we've already got about 15 questions in for Sandrine. So we're going to try and actually answer these on the chat function, because everyone is so insanely interesting that time is going to run out. So I'd like to make sure that we've got time to hear from Megs and Rita. So we'll move on to Megs, who's going to talk to us a little bit about actually all that waste and all those bottles that, she's ended up with countless times in all the bars that she's worked at. And I'd love to hear, Megs, from you, your thoughts. What can we do better?
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Zdenek, it was awesome to hear from you. I've been following EcoSPIRITS and really, really excited what you guys are doing. And I can't wait to see it in a city that I live in. And Sandrine, just great to hear you speak again. I met you at Chivas Venture last year. My boyfriend's actually the global ambassador for Chivas, Reese. So I know a lot of what you do, and it's always great to hear you talk. So thank you so much. It's really exciting to be a part of this right now. And I guess a quick backstory of myself and the kind of, reason that I'm here is, so I've been in hospitality for about 15 years in 6 different countries, soon to be 7 countries. And, when I've been traveling around the world, mostly with my partner, Reese and Dre Masso, when we've worked together in different countries, we've always had this ethos of respecting the local culture and community and family. And that was kind of the really basis of what we worked together on. And most recently, before coming back to London, we were in Colombia and really focusing on this. And one thing that came to mind with all of these companies, all these bars that we got to work with, was that was always our core, is like, how can we respect everything? So that comes massively in sustainability, but respecting that local culture and not leaving an impact on it for the better, not worse. And one that comes to mind the most is this beach club that we worked with. So this tiny little beach club off the coast of Cartagena. It was about a half an hour boat ride away. So everything that they had at this beach club, they had to bring by boat. And if they couldn't bring it back, and recycling is obviously not so great in Colombia. But one thing they did do great is beer bottles. Like Zdenek was saying before, is that you could take beer bottles away, and any Colombian brand, they would take wash them out and recycle them. However, international brands didn't do this in Colombia. So something like Corona. So if you're a beach club, Corona is going to be very, very popular with tourists. However, they would get it to the beach club and nothing was going away. So one of the great initiatives that happened with these guys is essentially social media harassed Corona and said, like, all of these bottles are piling up on our beach. What are we supposed to do with them? And another big problem in Colombia, and happens worldwide, is construction companies take sands off the beaches to use in construction. So these sands are like, these beautiful beaches are getting ruined by construction companies. So what was the solution here was this really amazing bottle crusher called Glass to Sand, if you guys look it up. And essentially it's really easy to use, really cool to use, and turns bottles instantly back into sand. So essentially made Corona buy them this. So this tiny little beach club where it's able to change a whole brand's perception and find a solution for them. So the point with this story is, like, no matter how small you are, if you continue to push and ask, you can sometimes see results, and those results can be huge. So then what happened with the glass sand was they would give that to the construction companies for free, and the beaches were left alone. So it's just this beautiful now circular project, instead of just being like, here's the waste, you deal with it, right? So that's kind of a little story about Colombia, and I'll take you guys to our most recent project, which has been in London, a place called Fam Bar. So basically, when we started with Fam, is that good? Everyone can see that? Perfect. Let me just...
Lovely Fam Bar.
Oh, hold on. Oh, what did I hit? There we go. So essentially, yeah, when we were opening Fam Bar, we wanted to put all of those views. What am I doing? Sorry.
That's all right. You just
all of those views in the bar from. Yeah, is that all good?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, sweet. So when we were opening Fam, all of these things were the biggest forefront. So we wanted a bar from the ground up. So, beginning these questions from everything is just like, so many bars use cling film. What do you actually need it for? And all of those packaging things. So when we were deciding as a team, we're just a little neighborhood bar in central London. We're putting community culture and people at the core, and then thinking really about the products that we bring into the bar and how we do it. So something like so simple when we very first open, we're deciding it as a team, what products we want to stock. And for example, there's a cider that everybody really liked. We loved this cider. It was local. It was really tasty. It was coming from just outside London. However, when they dropped it off for us to taste, it was like in the cans with those little plastic rings around the top of the cans. And just quite simply, it's just asking that question of, can you change your packaging? And they were really surprised and said, no, why would you ask us to change our packaging? I was like, look, really sorry, but we're not taking single-use plastics in our bar. And so those little rings around the top of the cans, we can't strike your product. We really like it, but we won't be taking your product on. He was quite surprised at this, but 6 months later, that company called us back and said, we've changed our packaging. Would you be willing to take us on now? We're just one little bar. We're 6 people. So, just always think, if you keep asking the questions, and you don't have to be really intense about it. I always like that quote that the world's changed by your example, not by opinion. So you don't have to shove it down someone's throat, but if you just continue to ask that question over and over again. We're not perfect at Fam. It's been a very, trial and error. So we got that amazing glass crusher at Fam. And it's taken me 15 months to finally figure out what we can do with this sand. So unfortunately, we got this glass crusher really instantly right at the beginning, but we weren't able to crush our bottles because nobody in London would take our sand. We're too small for construction companies to come and pick it up, and we're too small of a business to physically always do this because the sand would come quite often. But now just recently, we teamed up with this lovely, lovely little working during the COVID situation, obviously, with this lovely, amazing farm just outside London that not only do they do seasonal great products and deliver to all the best bars and restaurants in London, or we're building to deliver to best bars and restaurants in London, but working with big people like Sketch and Sexy Fish, etc. But they come in and teach bars about the waste. So they will take all your cardboards and plastics and teach you how about doing proper food waste. And they're actually going to be taking all of our sand, and we're still working out what they're going to do with it, but they have figured out that they can mix a little bit in with compost and other varieties, and working with different schools as well. So it's quite exciting. So it's taken us a really long time to get there in London, where in Colombia it actually weirdly ended up being so easy. We're now, so it's, the point is always kind of trial and error, but if you keep going. So, you know, we ask all of our suppliers about what kind of packaging it comes in, and we carefully pick the products that we use local products wherever possible, but that's not always possible. So we kind of, so we refuse single-use plastics. We, instead of the fruit suppliers, so essentially, yeah, go in, can you change the mind of the distributors? Can you ask the brands, think about every time you do your receive at the bar, how much cardboard and plastics are you taking down? Like Sandrine, well, obviously, this is why I love, another reason why I love Chivas is, you know, when you're unpacking Chivas, it doesn't come in that metal can. What is that metal can meant to do in bars? You know, it's just such a waste of plastic, and what happens to it? You can't even break it down and recycle that. And so it's quite frustrating. And everything that you can see in FAM right here when we opened was recycled. So the entire decor, we didn't buy anything new. So those lamps, that sound system, the vinyl, all the vinyl, the bar stools, we went and just hired a van and got everything from antique markets. You know, we reused everything wherever possible. And I think that kind of shows it doesn't have to, you know, you don't have to give up on design just because of looking for sustainable. So we even think about packaging when we are looking at our fruit suppliers. We went through, there's lots of great fruit suppliers in London, like MASH and Natura, but if you're a very small bar, we don't hit the minimum spend order. So we don't get to use those companies because we're too small. So, you know, just as a team, we just made the decision, we'll go to local markets. So we go and pick up our fruit and veg from our local markets, and we get what we need. So, you know, going to somewhere like Borough Market and supporting that local. And, you know, it's a nice little walk in the mornings to do that instead. Do you have foraging companies where you live? There is one really great, I'm just having a complete blank, and I'll remember what it is, a foraging company that we use, but every week they send out what they foraged for that week. And usually it's a lot of veg that doesn't work for us, but then they have some really interesting berries and herbs and, you know, dried things that you can turn into teas. And it's really fun and interesting to see what you can get. And then these are, if you can find a cool foraging company like that, it opens your mind to, not having all of your fruit delivered in plastic, but just because we can get all these international, like these global, these fruits and vegetables from overseas, just because we can doesn't mean that we necessarily should. And think about the carbon footprint of that product. So if you really focus on what's on your doorstep, then, you know, there's so many different ingredients that you're probably going to be a lot surprised about the flavors that you can get from them. You know, in the UK, there's an amazing weed called pineapple weed that literally tastes like pineapple. If you're up in Scotland, gorse is a beautiful bush that's all over Scotland, and it tastes like coconut. So, you know, you can still get tropical flavors probably from your own country, and then you don't have to worry about the packaging and the carbon footprint from where it's traveling from. I guess one big thing that I'm quite nervous and scared about right now is our current situation. I feel that we're in a time of, we're going to very easily kind of go backwards on waste and packaging. You know, we've just gotten to a point of no straws and caring about our anti-plastic waste, where now, because these bars are all focused on takeaway and delivery, which is great, it's survival of the fittest right now, but can we talk about that as an industry, and really what's that solution, and not just revert back to what's the easiest thing? Because if we just have an open conversation and talk about it a bit more, it maybe going to just ordering a bunch of plastic cups for takeaway is not the easiest thing. You know, ordering a glass jar and putting a deposit on it so that person brings that back and it's reusable. And, you know, I'd much rather drink a takeaway beer out of glass anyways than a plastic cup personally. It tastes much better. So just really thinking about how we cannot go backwards. So for me, that's about it. But this is, if anybody's ever met me before, I'm obsessed with TED Talks. I probably listen to 2 to 3 a day when I'm walking my dog in the morning. And this TED Talk is one of my favorites forever. This is a TED Talk from 2013. She's been around for a really long time. She's done many talks, but really thinking about, it's not just the simple thing of thinking about, oh, well, I just won't use the packaging, or I'll get the paper over the plastic. Well, you need to think about where that actually ends up, because in this talk, she goes through, if that paper ends up in a landfill, that's actually heavier than plastic. So that's not the easy answer. We need to think about how we actually focus on the whole circular design. Essentially what, Zdenek and Sandrine are doing, which is beautiful, and Evelyn, going like, we're going to start from the ground up or work on fixing it. So yeah, please go watch her TED Talk. It's great. And I will stop sharing there.
Again, that was
Thank
an
you.
insanely inspiring story. I think, Megs, the thing I loved the most about what you said was ultimately how one small bar was able to impact, a much larger cider brand just with your convictions, and that they were able to take that on board constructively and come back with a solution. And at the end of the day, as you say, it's these small changes that can truly impact and create the positivity within the whole industry. So well done.
I think it's like, I was like on that, like that particular story, for example, it was really quite cute because the way he responded to me was like, are you kidding? Like he'd never had that answer before. So he probably wasn't, they didn't do anything bad when they brought up when they designed their packaging. They just never thought about it. They never thought like, oh, no one's ever questioned this. So as soon as it was questioned, it was great to see how much you can change someone's mind.
And I'd say that's true for everything in life. It's bringing awareness into these things. And that's why this panel and these positively charged series are about inspiring and not preaching, because at the end of the day, you don't know what you don't know. And if we are privileged enough to have more awareness or education or have traveled more, then it's for us to share that. And the other thing I wanted to say again, and this is speaking from my Colombian heart, but it is what they call underdeveloped countries that tend to have all the solutions because they are so practical. Yeah. They need to reuse, they need to recycle, they need to repair, and they do it in a way that's just, it's smart and it's fantastic and resourceful. And I think we've lost that in the West. We've lost our resourcefulness. So again, great stories. Thank you.
Thank you.
So there's loads of questions coming in. So if you want to answer anything you can on the chat, and then once we hear from our favorite Rita, we will open up the Q&A and answer some of them live. Rita, we're very excited to hear from you.
Awesome. Let me share my screen and I'll try to be quick with this one. There we go. Share. Can you all see?
Yeah.
Let me, view, enter full screen.
You've got
there it. We go. Oh, no, there we go. We're not going anywhere. Wait, view. Designers and PowerPoint, that's not a good combination.
Go all the way to the bottom. All the way to the bottom.
There we go. Yeah.
There you go. I know, we're so sorry to make you use PowerPoint. You must hate us.
Anyway, I think going back to the start of this process, because we heard all of these amazing stories that I think happen a bit further down the line. And what I want to discuss with you guys today is when we start creating brands and how using design thinking as a process can really help to find better and more sustainable solutions. So that's the topic. So I think we've already know I'm a designer. I'm the design director for Wonderworks. I've been a designer for a number of years. And in this past years, things have changed rapidly, not only worldwide, where we've seen changes, economic changes, social changes, environmental changes, but also in the industry I know and I work with every day, which is the drinks industries. We have seen so many changes. For example, the craft beer movement, all the shades and colors of gins from all around the world, the rise of the RTD, functional drinks. There's super shiny new things happening every single day. However, the change that I think is most important, and I'm going to discuss with you guys today, is that sustainability is no longer a trend, it's a requisite. And when we're starting from scratch, or we have a brand that's already in development, going back and questioning its life cycle and the sustainability behind it, it's now a key focus for us designers and consumers alike. So, especially when we're thinking about packaging, it's such a key feature of our drinks brands to get that connection across to consumers and just get this space enough in that crowded back bar or in the crowded supermarket. Being a sustainable brand doesn't mean that you leave behind design or you fail to do that emotional connection. You just have to be a bit more creative in doing so. And throughout my career, I have lost the count of how many times I heard, oh, can you make this logo bigger? Can you make this look prettier? Can you make this pop? Can you make this bold? And I think for most of it, that's failing to understand the design, the meaning of design, and how a brand truly works, and what is my job as a designer to help your brand. So going to that, what the hell do designers do all day? And I think this is the first poll that team is gonna launch, and to help you with it, because I always think in images, here are some options. So option A, we get immersed in our brand world, which is, in my case, a lot of sampling, thank God. We do a lot of brainstorms, not brainwashing. We visualize everything. We tend to visualize our ideas and work in terms of options. And we do prototyping as well. So what do you think happens most of the day for us?
Are we launching the poll,
Are
Tim?
we launching the
He is, he's doing it. No, we're not launching the poll.
we're not.
Technical issues have ruined polling day.
That's okay. Well, let's let the panelists answer. What do we think Rita does all day? I think, Rita, I don't know. I think you're scribbling in a notebook whilst drinking copious amounts of coffee.
Yeah,
and,
I think
and not replying to any of our emails because you're drawing so much.
Most of it, yeah.
Megs, what do you think she does?
I think it's the brainstorming. Like it's, yeah, that would be my guess.
Zay?
From all of my works with designers, I think that especially with anything comes to food and beverage, the A picture would take the longest. Immersing yourself in a brand and do research while you are sipping on either Avalon or and cookies or whatever other brands you're working on. I think that is hard. Or if I would be a designer, that would be a hard part for me too. I would probably make it 90%, and then.
Yeah, well, most of it is sampling, but we do tend to do all of those at any given day. But before we get into the fun part, which is exactly this part of the process, which is going through all the steps, we actually do a lot of thinking. And that's the main job of designers today. When we are considering such big problems such as sustainability, we do need to think. And there are two main questions that we focus on in the first part of any project. The first one is, what actually is the problem? Because sometimes not even the client is aware of all the variables and all the issues surrounding certain creation. And many times as the project grows and develops, we find ourselves in a completely different space to where we actually started. And the second thing that we need to think about a lot is, who are we designing for? Who are we working for? Who is the target audience? And this is where empathy plays such a big role, because as a designers, most of the time we need to shed our own preconcepts and get into the mind of the consumer and who are designing for, to really understand what is their needs. So in lack of a better word, we've tried to find that connection that would really make things pop for the consumer. And that brings me to design thinking, and what is the topic of my talk today. So I think thinking like a designer and applying some design features to your processes and your projects can really help you achieve sustainable solutions, but also make an authentic connection to your consumer. So design thinking is a human-centered approach to innovation that draws from the designer's toolkit to integrate the needs of people, the possibilities of technology, and the requirements for business success. And Tim Brown said that he's one of the thought leaders of design thinking. He's such a big guru. If you don't know him, look at IDEO, they are amazing. And they are solving a lot of these problems throughout different industries, not only any industry can apply this thinking. And in a nutshell, what it means is that we are using creativity to solve really complex problems and issues. And the process of design thinking, more or less, once again in images, looks like this. And I just changed the titles because this is the journey that we go through on any given day. We go through a phase of discovering the product. And of course I have the sampling, but this is really about talking to all the important stakeholders. For example, talking to the guys who produce the liquid in terms of, if we think about creating a brand for a drinks brand, talking to the guys who make the packaging in the factories, talking to the clients, to the consumers, and gathering that information from all different perspectives to really define the problem and have a clear idea of all the little pieces that you have to play with. And then we go to the other fun part, which is the ideation, the brainstorms. And once again, we have to involve different kinds of people here, because good ideas are generated through friction of opinions of different perspectives. And then we visualize and we think about visuals in terms of options. As a designer, I'm not going to give you a straightforward solution. I'm going to probably give you a series of visual ideas so we can together assess what is the path to the real solution. And the last one is prototyping and testing your product and making sure, as he was saying, if you get rid of any kinks in the design, and as soon you uncover new ideas, you also uncover new questions to your design. So in fact, the process is quite complex and it's not linear by any chance. We need to go through a series of iterations to really help define the problem and achieve that solution that ticks us all the boxes, and that further down the line is not going to create more problems that we haven't seen before. And as a great example, I think you know this brand, as a great example of this journey and the process that we went through with Steph and Tim is Avalon. We had the pleasure of being part of this project almost from the start, and it's a truly sustainable brand from the beginning, because from understanding Steph and Tim's vision of creating a truly successful and sustainable product, to understand the implications of reigniting a Calvados brand in Normandy and how that links to the bees, and how we could integrate that into a beautiful visual narrative. We ticked all those boxes and we created a truly sustainable, beautiful brand, and still were able to create a connection with your audience and create a brand and the packaging that people love so much. And this is just such a good example of going through all the tick boxes and going through all the process. And at this stage, I think we're going to go back to rethinking some things. For example, the labels, how they work in the inside, if they're printed on the inside. So I'm just going to share some really top considerations when we were creating Avalon. We wanted to create a disruptive brand within the category, the Calvados category, but also reflect the mission. And we wanted to reduce carbon footprinting, and we did that by choosing a bottle that was created near the distillery. All the materials in the design were either recycled, or we were able to use materials that didn't affect the environment, such as sustainable inks. And for example, the label is printed in an off-white recycled apple pulp, which links back to the goal and the mission of Avalon. So this was in fact the ideal project, because from the very start, sustainability was the North Star for this brand. And we know packaging is just one of the many touch points of the brand. So we were able to take this process and this vision and apply it throughout different POS, and think about brand activation in the way that we could keep it always sustainable. And I think I appreciate that, as this is the ideal project, not all the brands are in this stage where they can have the investment to create and to think about sustainability as a bigger picture. So I would suggest for brands who are taking the first step into thinking how they can transform packaging, not to do everything at once, do it incrementally, go to the market and test, order small quantities of your samples. When you're really designing it and getting into that design phase, also you might want to consider redesigning your brand, because sustainability is something that nowadays consumers always want to see, and you might end up with a better design, not because it's sustainable, but because we rethink the whole process of it. And always order product samples and think about cross-check the credentials, so you're so everything is sustainable. And the last one is order in small volumes. Once again, don't do everything at once. Order small volumes, go to the market, test, see the reactions of consumers before making such a big investment. And I think those are the few
Rita's top tips.
Sorry?
Your top tips.
My top tips, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Just a final one. Haven't finished. So I think the key point to get across is that design thinking is not a recipe just for designers, or it's not a solitary process. You need the collaborators, you need the friction, you need different perspectives to arrive at truly brilliant and sustainable ideas. And the truth is that Steph and team were using design thinking even before Wonderworks was part of the process. They just didn't know it. And they were using creativity, the creation of this liquid, to solve a really complex sustainable issue. And I think that's quite inspiring. So I urge you all to learn a bit more about design thinking and how this could have a real impact, not only on your products and packaging, but in your strategies and businesses and brand activations. This could be a really good tool for everyone to use. So thank you.
No, that's amazing advice, Rita. And I think, thank you so much for the incredible work you guys have done with Avalon. A question from me, and then we're going to go to the live Q&A, is if you were to give brands, new brands or old brands wanting to reinvent or evolve design, what's your number one tip when it comes to giving you guys the right brief? Because in my experience, brief is everything. And I think that's what we had quite clear with Avalon. Plus, Tim and I couldn't, decide anything together. So we just let you guys do your thing. And that was also trust, giving trust to the experts in the room. But what would you, top tip? How do we give you guys a good brief?
The top tip is sometimes, as you said, clients are not sure what is the brief. So rather than coming to us with a full-fledged brief, we much rather sit together in a round table and try to assess what is the problem, try to do that thinking up front, and together we can see, because packaging or design brief is not ever clear. And if we sit together with the designers, with the clients, with other key stakeholders, we will arrive at what is the issue we want to solve much quicker than doing it into different silos, the client and the designers, because that will, I think that's my top tip. Sit together, draw some options, make a roadmap, and try to solve it together.
Involve you guys in the brief from the outset before the brief's defined.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think that's a really good tip for anyone ever looking to do design work. Okay, so we have 10 minutes left, and my gosh, this has been full of nuggets of wisdom. I know Yael's on the call ready to write this all up into a positively charged report, and she must be buzzing. I'm going to go to some questions for Z, and there's quite a few that ultimately repeat themselves. Traceability, can you just headline, take us through again how traceability with the Eco Totes works and why it's important?
Thank you for the question. The way how it works in our system is we have to record for tax reasons in every country as well, where the liquid goes and how the liquid's packaged and what goes into each EcoTote by weight and by milliliters, because each of the liquid has a little bit of a different weight to it. And so as we are recording this, obviously for those departments, the legal side of it, we would then we decided the number on the EcoTote and the number on the actual seal needs to be recorded on our site anyway for those purposes, and therefore we keeping them in our logs. And so when we send an EcoTote out in our own inventory system, those numbers get recorded, so we know where that EcoTote is when it comes to if it leaves our warehouse. If it goes to Manhattan Bar, or it goes to Atlas Bar, or it goes to 28, we know where it is. And when it comes back to be refilled, resealed, sanitized, etc., that number gets checked as well. So we know when it comes back. And therefore, if we start in, let's say, London, if we start with 2,000 totes, we have all of those numbers written. We know what numbers are sitting in our warehouse being ready to be filled. We know which numbers are sitting in our warehouse already filled, ready to be dispatched to the bars. And therefore, those numbers which are not in those two places, they are obviously in the field servicing the clients. And so we know where these guys are. And as they move around, we can always check and reply to anyone who is asking. We can always reply to them backwards saying, oh yeah, you have this number with this batch number that was filled 2 weeks ago by this group of people who are certified fillers for EcoSPIRITS. It was filled with such and such liquid, if that answers the question.
Awesome.
With
Absolutely.
the QR code, it will be obviously simpler, easier, and it will most likely be able to have even more information, because simply you can pack more data into QR code or under QR code.
And I know you guys would have done this research, but a question I have here from Bastian is ultimately bag in box, was that not more sustainable, and why did you decide to move forward with the glass solution?
It's the idea here is that we have a closed cycle. closed cycle is simply from our research. We're not saying that we are, there's definitely, I am all ears to hear if there is better solution, but from our research, closed cycle, closed loop is the best. If you look at it from the perspective of recycling is a great thing, but we all know how brands want the labels to stay on the bottle. They are glued to them. And so it takes amounts of water to take the label off the bottle before you can recycle it. Then once you have that, you already used that water, etc., which is wasted or needs to be recycled itself, the water itself, which is another use of energy. Then you need to heat up your ovens to 1300 Celsius or so to be able to recycle the glass, to get it back into a liquid form and change it into a new bottle or new glass vessel, which is again another big amount of energy to use. And so recycling, although it's a great idea and it's something we need to do, closed loop was simply the easiest for us. And putting a glass in was something what people trusted. And then packaging the glass into a protective material, which in this second iteration is an aluminum, which is recyclable as well. There's several different types, but the one which we use is recyclable as well, meant that we hoped that we can use these eco-totes many times. And we now, because we've been running Singapore for 2 years, have several eco-totes, which we call hero eco-totes as an insider joke. Veterans. They have done more than 100 trips. And so if you look at it from that perspective, that is 450 liters of liquid. That is almost 2 pallets of glass, which would have been otherwise saved. And those heroes are still going. They scratched here and there, which makes them pretty romantic and fun, but to us, but it's they still going around. And so we, again, never say never. We're happy to change as we go along, but currently the combination of glass and the outer packaging is giving us a very long lifespan per tote.
Super cool, awesome. Okay, quick one for you, Megs. The name of the farm in London that's taking your sand?
Pale Green Dot.
Pale Green Dot. Awesome.
So this is still, we're still not like 100%, but this is the, like I said, it took me a very long time to try to find someone to work with. And so we're just in initial conversations with them. So it's, but it's looking very positive. But yeah, Pale Green Dot, if you're looking for, but they're already set up for waste systems for bars and restaurants. So for food waste, packaging, plastics, paper, cardboard, etc.
Amazing. Great. Well, Tim, any last questions from you or parting words?
There's a couple of questions in the chat. So for Sandrine, what are the key challenges you face in taking traditional whiskey packaging with the traditional drinker to more sustainable and often more modern packaging?
Yes, but well, that's exactly what I was responding to in terms of the Glenlivet capsules. We had those people who wanted to try something new and others that are ingrained in the traditions. So it's all about accompanying that slow change. With all of the products out there, Scotch needs to reinvent itself, and it's taking it step by step.
Fantastic. I think we've got one last question, which is, and anyone can answer this, we'll open it up to the audience. What are the views of recycled PET bottles versus glass, as glass has a higher carbon impact because of its weight? You must have something here.
Is it, and this is my just humble opinion here, is I think that the plastic bottles' biggest problem is that they not simple one type of plastic now, right? That they combining 2 different plastics together, and they make it basically impossible to really recycle, which is again something what goes against intelligent packaging rather than profit packaging, because it's cheaper to combine those 2 things together to create a plastic packaging which costs nothing. yeah, that would be my thing, is that it's just simpler to understand how to recycle, not understand how to recycle glass in a base of the idea than plastic. But that's just my uneducated opinion on plastics.
Yeah, I think for us, it's also the part of looking at the environmental picture is much more than just carbon. You know, if we just look at carbon, yeah, plastic is better than glass. But if you look at the life cycle, you know, how long it takes plastic to break down, and also the way it breaks down in nature, and the damage it's causing to biodiversity, you know, the fact that microplastics is in our drinking water, it's in all the food we eat, it's in our cells in our bodies now. That's a huge consideration as well. So I think it's about looking at a much wider picture than just carbon. And in that way is kind of
the bigger picture, finding the different trade-offs and the one that causes the least harm.
Yeah, exactly. There's no one perfect solution. You know, the perfect solution is no packaging, but obviously
no booze, no spirit.
Yeah, obviously
no packaging, no.
Keep the spirit.
That's the Elon Musk philosophy of the best part is no part. So if you can design a part out of something, you've improved the design of it. But obviously we need to have some packaging, so it's about finding the least harmful solution. And thankfully there are many people on the call today who are doing some amazing work to really innovate and challenge the traditional packaging in the drinks industry.
And I think the most important thing for us all on the call, audience and panelists, to remember is this is not a zero-sum equation, and we are all learning as we go. So as long as we are transparent and we collaborate and we exchange, we will find a way forward. And that's the future, I think, of this industry. And time is upon us. You guys have been amazing, haven't they, Tim?
Yeah, I just agree with Hugo. He says the solution is a glass bottle with a natural cork. So glass bottle, natural cork.
we want to keep Portugal's economy afloat, Rita. Keep the corks going. No, honestly, super insightful. I'm sure quite a few people will be reaching out to you guys or directly. And you know, if anyone has any thoughts for our next Positively Charged webinar, we are super open to feedback and ideas. This was series 3. We will be writing this all up for you so that you're able to have a little bite-sized nugget read later on in the month. And Tim, what's left to say? What's the last thing we say?
Oh, hang on, just one quickly thing. If you want to get a copy of the Positively Charged report, if you head over to Avalanche Spirits and sign up to our newsletter, we'll be sending it out in our next newsletter to everybody.
Brilliant. So what's left to say?
Just remember
to be positive. No, anyway. Everyone stay safe. Be well.
Thank you.
Merci.
Bye.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Ciao.